What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another workforce therapy file.
Welcome back to the Workforce Therapy Files. Friends, Jason Mully, I sent a message out to people that I know listen to our podcast and asked them what they'd like to hear us talk about. So I want to read one to you guys because I thought it'd be a lot of fun to dive into this because I find this stuff fun, even if
I
it's a
love
little
that
scary.
you did that
Thanks.
because our listeners and their opinions matter to us.
For sure. So this one's really interesting too because it's very relevant to the state of Kentucky. So it says, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to mess it up. It says, I'm looking at the numbers and they aren't good. There just aren't enough work-age people in the state of Kentucky to support all of the job openings. And plot twist, it's not just Kentucky. You know, if you were to look across the U.S., this is absolutely a challenge a lot of states are having. And even when you look at the data, it looks like the places that aren't suffering from it have more immigration, right? They have more individuals that are new to the U.S. that are willing to, or that are part of the workforce. So this text says, so for example, some of the entry roles in the metals industry are not exactly the sexiest thing there is, and if we can't fill them, these metals companies will leave Kentucky. Metals is the third largest employers in Kentucky.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Me either. So it'd be a real problem for the economy. So what I'm specifically trying to do right now is find ways to connect industry leaders with existing university or chamber programs to help them grow the potential workforce. And it's just been a daunting experience. So this is not unique to the metals industry. I have clients that are in healthcare that have talked about how they have a hard time attracting individuals. And even when they went back to universities, the number of people that are majoring in the degree programs that they are most interested in hiring from, there's less people joining those degree programs.
That's right.
This population change, this shift, this availability is not going away. Even if everybody went out and said, hey, we're going to go make babies right now.
We wouldn't feel it for 20 years.
I mean, it'd be at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we did a little bit of brainstorming to prepare for this episode of different things companies could consider doing to help support their efforts. But before we dive into those ideas, I want to be really clear that all the other things we said in the previous 13 episodes to talk about attraction and retention, those are table stakes, right? So when we're looking at these suggestions, these are additional things that you might be able to consider. So Jason, before we hopped on this podcast, you had a really neat story about a space where one of your clients worked within this challenge. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, they were a good example of someone who is casting a wide net, which we say is not necessarily the right approach. And they were looking for a specific role. Mm-hmm. They were looking for welders, and they needed quite a few of them. Mm-hmm. In the market they were in, there just were not enough people with that skill set, or even willing to get trained into that skill set. So what we had learned through a connection at one of the groups that support New Americans in that area was that they had a population of Burmese who had just immigrated. Some had the skill set to weld, and most were willing to learn it, however quickly they needed to. Mm-hmm. And they were eager to do so. And so the challenge then became not how do we get these people? We had the group, we had the targets, they were willing and ready to go. In fact, many of them were like, I can start tomorrow. Like, get me going, give me a name tag. But the challenge then became they didn't speak English. Mm-hmm. And the entire existing workforce at that facility spoke English. So it was, we have to hire a translator now. And for a minute, that was a thing. That was we'd have to hire a translator. It's like, yeah, and you can get 12 welders tomorrow if you just are willing to hire this translator. So that's one lesson. That's one quick lesson. Think outside the box on those things. Think in terms of who, maybe you need to hire a supporting role for a group that otherwise may not be qualified, but you could fill all your positions tomorrow.
So using that strategy, there are so many things about this that I like. There's organizations right now who have individuals that English is not their first language, that they rely on employees that are doing the work to be the translators rather than finding somebody that's their function.
Yeah.
So I really like the story that they're having someone that they know is capable and interested in being the translator rather than just the de facto translator.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you have to hire one full-time translator, to
That's
your
right.
point. It could be one of those people speaks some English. You send them to some classes to become a better English speaker.
Yeah.
Maybe they're willing to start a month earlier and get all that experience working with the English-speaking team, learn what the key, communication points are going to be, and then when the rest of the team comes on board, they're ready to do that work.
And if you were to think about this, hiring a role that may not naturally be a position that you would have on your staff to be able to accommodate a need in an available population, this is a meaningful strategy. It can help with individuals that have hearing or visual impairments or other individuals in the disabled population. There's all types of ways where choosing to hire one position opens up an entire avenue of possible individuals to your organization.
Well, and we have clients that have locations throughout the U.S., right? So we have one in particular, they have a location in Louisville. They have a location in Miami, Tampa, and Charlotte. Louisville is the least amount of people that they have applying for jobs. So the volume of recruiting that takes place in the other three locations, they don't have a problem with. There's also a higher amount of attendance issues for their employees. And when you can drill down into the why, those other three locations, they have partnered with organizations for, let's say, for example, a certain group of individuals, so the Hispanic Coalition folks, where they have groups of people that come to fill a set number of jobs. Let's say it's 10. And of those, they live together, they ride together, they report together. So the camaraderie, the group, the family environment that they bring to an organization creates consistency. You've got a group of people that aren't going to have attendance issues. I'm not saying in particular this group of individuals. I'm just talking about in general terms. If you can build out the expectation for what that could be and partner with coalitions like that to be able to provide them with opportunities and having that one translator, one specific opportunity, that's where you're going to change the game.
Yeah, and even hiring an outside resource who knows that population or has,
That's right.
Like you said, organizations. There are lots of organizations. Jamie mentioned people with disabilities. We're talking about people from other cultures, immigrants. But, I was speaking with someone the other day who helps people hire people with autism on the autism spectrum. And so her role is to say, at this point on the spectrum are the type of people that would be perfect for this position. People who otherwise have difficulties and challenges around interviewing or around searching for jobs, but would be amazing in that role. And so working with someone who knows whichever population it is you're talking about and can say, yeah, this would work for you for these three roles, this type of person could do that job very well and would be more than willing. And so I think there's some real opportunities there to not just say, again, we always say, don't cast a wide net. Be targeted about this. And so this is talking about it from a different perspective, being targeted in a very unique way, not just targeted on what we talked about in our last episode, like, are they interested in gaming? But, do they fit into certain populations that could really work for this that we have never targeted before or we've never thought about before?
Absolutely.
But, and the whole start of this file is Americans aren't making more Americans.
That's right.
People in general aren't making more people. So, how do we overcome the workforce labor shortage in construction right now nationally? We're 600,000 people short of doing the work that needs to be done.
Yep.
And I have to believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are consistent in how we look for talent to build our teams and not thinking outside of the box on what we can do differently. How can we accommodate the needs within the workforce for jobs that aren't going to be replaced by a machine? I mean, you're not going to find someone to build a building 100% solely without humans. You're not going to have a machine to replace a toilet.
That's right.
There's so many jobs that you're not going to have the option of technology to replace the actual hands that are doing it.
Yeah, and it's good practice to go into your hiring approach and first saying, okay, which pieces and parts of this can we look at? Automation, AI, robotics, that's a big macro view for the organization.
Sure.
And most small companies can't afford that kind of thing.
Right.
But if you can, look at what can be done. Okay, you may have taken a situation where you're hiring 500 people down to 458. But you're definitely, to Molly's point, not solving the problem by using technology, automation, AI, all those things. So you still have a big hill to climb. So then, okay, well, now let's think about who would be eligible for this role. And again, we're saying think way outside the box. Think about all the possibilities. Don't rule anything out, because there are you have to think like that now. You have to.
But Jamie, don't you think in this world that we're looking at, when the world shut down in 2020, March 17th, I think was the official date, right? When everything shut down.
Yeah.
The people that had to keep going to work, the people that had jobs that they had to consistently show up for,
essential workers.
the essential workers, that's the key. When you think about human capital management, human capital count, and why do we use those words again? Human resources, human capital. I think you said that earlier, Jason.
So cool.
I don't like it, but let's just keep going, right? Because we can't change today. But I think helping organizations understand that they have to build the success plan for their workers, their essential workers, embrace them and show them the why.
Agreed.
I'm not talking about, laying out a red carpet and, having pizza parties and ice cream at every break. I'm not talking about that. But come on. You can't expect people to walk into an interview and you ask them a question outside of the scope of work that they are supposed to be doing. Are you going to do the custodial work that we're not going to outsource?
Right.
That's not how this works.
No.
The days of union and understanding the box that this person is going to live in has to be respected. A paycheck is no longer it, in my opinion. IMHO.
Preach.
I think you're on to something, Molly. And I think that part of what we're dealing with right now is that we also have individuals who are building their entire strategies around workforce readiness, around what is plaguing our organization right now. It's very reactive. It's very much focused on what my immediate need is.
Yes.
And the organizations that tend to do it better are those who are doing better planning. They are looking at what the future of their workforce currently looks like. They understand their metrics. They know what their turnover looks like. They know that, one organization I used to work with knew that individuals left after 3 years. That was their typical cliff, if you will. So they actually started to create programs that encourage people to leave after 3 years. Here's what you're going to learn with us in the first 3 years. Here's the educational resources that we're going to provide. Here's our motivation to at least keep you 3 years so that I can plan for who I need to backfill it with.
Yeah.
Anything that can help your organization steady the gaps that are going to come up is going to be good for you, right?
I can hear the eyes rolling in the audience too about like, really?
Yeah.
Because if it's lunchtime and you are hungry, you're hangry, and somebody's saying, what are we going to have for dinner? You're like, I don't care about dinner. I got to eat lunch right now.
That's right.
But you know what? It's the people who are planning for dinner that aren't going to be in that situation at dinner saying, gosh, I'm so hungry, because they thought about it.
That's right.
So it's hard to say. I know it's hard for people to hear, you need to be planning for the future when you have a now problem, but you're going to have a now problem forever unless you
Forever.
start planning for the future.
Absolutely. In fact, I think one of the front runners that I remember just being so impressed by was UPS. So when I graduated college many moons ago, I remember living next door to someone who worked for UPS and was also getting their college paid for. I'm like, oh my gosh. So in a city like Louisville that has University of Louisville, and they had this great relationship that UPS set up with Louisville, they set up these amazing programs where you could get experience and leadership experience while pursuing your degree. And maybe your degree didn't have anything to do with something that was going to be at UPS. But UPS was able to deliver because of those arrangements that they made with local resources, and they planned for individuals to come in and to leave. Now, I've never worked for UPS. I'm not familiar with their internal metrics, but I do see that as an effort that they were making to be prepared for what their organization was going to need.
Our United States Armed Forces does that,
Yeah, absolutely.
has been doing it for decades and decades.
Right.
We'll pay for your college, wear
And
this uniform once a week, come to these classes, you're going to be working with us for a couple of years after, but we'll take care of you, and you're going to get lots of great skill sets that can be applied elsewhere.
And that's a great employer to speak to in this very topic. I think the last number, and this could have been 2022 numbers because I remember hearing it in 23. So forgive me for the statistics folks out there that need the numbers, but I want to say it's something like a little over 100,000 roles in the military are empty right now. That we don't have enough people going into the military. And when individuals don't understand the breadth of what's going to happen if they go into the military, well, I'm only going to make $35,000 a year. Well, that may be your paycheck, but everything that you're getting in association with that job, yes, it's a commitment. Yes, it's a lifestyle. Yes, it's a life changer. I'm not discrediting all of the things that you have to give up and sacrifice, 100%. But you have to educate yourself as a candidate to what that organization offers as a whole.
Yes.
Well, and I don't even want to get on the soapbox personally about, a lot of,
This
there
feels
are.
like a moment where you say you don't want to get on the soapbox. And
But here I go, stepping up.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Here I am. I'm way up high on the soapbox now. But there are a lot of folks entering the workforce who want to be millionaires the first day. They want to be the CEO. And you got to pay your dues. You got to pay your dues to get where you want to be. You can't just jump straight in. You're going to fail straight out of the gate if you try to take the top position. So, taking some of these stepping stones, being willing to maybe join a fast track type program, or like we talked about with the armed forces, some sort of program that gets you in a role. You're going to learn a lot about what you want to do and what you don't want to do anyway.
And here's the thing. For all the organizations that we might touch with this podcast, the military for a long time has really been at the forefront of recruiting. If you were to think about the fact that they have been very intentional about their ad language towards certain generations.
Gaming.
Like I remember back when it was Be All You Can Be, and then for the Xers, it was Army of One. And then when it came to the next generation, now you see the parent who's pinning their child, right? Because the next generation was very involved in their child's future. Like they've been very intentional about their ads. And then one of my Facebook friends who's ex-military received a letter recently where they were encouraging retirees to return to the military. And he was like, thank you, but no thank you. But one of the strategies that we actually brainstormed was tapping into your alumni network. Individuals, now this only works if you're a great place to work, right? But individuals that may want to come back for either a part-time basis or with flexible hours or something to complement their retirement. There's a lot of skills, knowledge, experience that could be really helpful, especially if you're making a decision to fragment the work differently or split the job up or redo what's required in order to get work accomplished in your organization. So,
Can I do two things that you guys love when I do real quick?
oh, I can't wait.
Can I like
I'm
do a little?
scared.
Can
Do
I
we
like,
really
I'm
love it,
scared.
or is this?
Can I
Yeah,
sing?
I know.
Can I sing a jingle and tell a story?
I like it when you do both.
All right. See if you can identify this,
Okay.
Jamie, because you're a pop culture nerd.
Are we going with
You ready?
jingle?
Yeah, the
Jingle
jingle
first?
first.
Okay.
Jingle first.
Here we go. Closing my eyes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
What is that?
Oh,
I'm
is it Top Gun?
Yes.
Top Gun.
Uh huh.
This is
It's my
relevant.
favorite movie of all time.
Okay, the original, the OG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
OG.
That was Molly, by the way, that got that first.
So when the producers and the film company were planning the film in the initial stages, they were building models for the airplanes. They were building giant model ships, a lot like Star Wars, where they had built all the spaceships, and then they were going to try to, create these scenes with small models. And somebody said, has anybody called like the Navy to see if they'll just let us use real airplanes and real ships? And they were like, there's no way they're going to do that. Well, they called, and like to your point, Jamie, they're some of the best at recruiting. They said, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can use our ships and
Free
planes.
PR.
Yeah.
Heck
And
yeah.
they let them use pilots and planes and ships and do
Yes.
barrel rolls and all that crazy stuff. And,
That stuff sold the movie.
Oh, and that was
100%.
What kind of value is it to rent an aircraft carrier or 3 F-18s? I don't know, but anyway,
But it took one person to not say, this is the way we've always done it.
wouldn't it
Absolutely.
be better if we had real airplanes? Yeah, yeah, they're going to say no to that, but you don't know until you ask.
And I think, as true in life, oftentimes people put their head down and just do the thing, right? So being able to see beyond and outside of the current consistent deliverables that you have, it can happen. And you don't even think about it. And then 5 years goes by and you're like, how did I get here? So I think when you look at the workforce today in your larger organizations, take advantage of those 5 generations. How about we open some lines of communication to understand better when you're thinking about those that have the tribal knowledge of the organization? How's that going to get passed on? My daughter sent me I don't know, it was a TikTok or an Instagram, Meta video, and it said, here's to all the parents that are not handing down generational wealth, but taught excellent work ethic. And I'm like, yes, I did that.
Yeah, you did.
But I think if you look at the generations in the workplace today, how do you help them? What is it you can do? So as you were saying, those that have retired or are thinking of retirement, what's a better option? Could they go part-time and be a mentor to the person that's going to be replacing them?
Or even just PRN, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we've got some people are going to be out on vacation next week.
Can you
You're
come
interested
in?
in coming in
Yeah.
for a week? One company I worked with, we had a program that was called Work Campers. It was for the population that goes from place to place in their campers.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot that was rented where they could put their
love
campers
that
and they would
idea.
just come and join us for peak.
Make some
Yeah.
gas money for a few weeks.
But they had lower productivity expectations because the population was of a particular demographic, age-wise. And so, there were some adjustments that were made, but it helped get work accomplished during a time where people were needed.
I think it's definitely something that, like you said, all you had to do was ask.
And you have a great point, though, Molly. Like, I want to speak directly to the audience. Like, don't beat yourself up if you're not thinking of these creative, out-of-the-box things. It's what we do. We sit around and
Right.
try to think of solutions for people.
That's right.
You're in it. You're in the muck.
Head down, blinders on.
And we get it. So, that's why it's good to bring an outside resource in, or give yourself some grace. Get out of the office for half a day with your coworkers and be like, we're not going to talk about anything we do. We're going to talk about things we don't do. And nothing is too crazy to throw out
That's
there.
right.
And just get it all out.
And I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask yourselves when you're out doing that. Okay?
Go.
And that's what we're going to wrap up on today.
Question.
3 questions. Got my
Three
pen and
questions
paper.
when
Three
you're out with your
questions.
team, you're out here brainstorming. Number 1, what work has to get done?
What work has to get done?
What work has to get done? Number 2, what population do we currently have that can do work?
What work has to get done? And what's the next one?
What population do we currently have that can do work?
In-house.
In-house.
What population do we currently have to do the work?
That's right.
Okay?
And then the third is, what changes do we need to make in the roles that we have to be able to get that work accomplished?
So this is an introspective 3 questions here.
Absolutely. I feel like if organizations spent more time asking themselves those 3 questions, you would be able to look and see whether or not the job responsibilities are still appropriately lumped, right? Like, I know that this role does X, Y, and Z, but it's going to be a lot easier for us if they just do X and then we hire somebody to do Y, because I can hire somebody to do Y. Y doesn't require a bachelor's degree. Y is something I can train in X amount of time, right? I can create a different plan whenever I've identified what work has to get done, what resources I currently have, and then where are my gaps.
And I would say, adding on to that, like, don't assume you know all those things.
No.
Don't even put that expectation on yourself. You might have to ask the team, I don't really fully understand this role. I've got the job description in front of me, and they'll be like, oh, we don't even do those 4 things. We do some of this other stuff. And you're like, oh, I didn't know about that. Okay, well, that's something we need to factor in. So there may be things, jobs, roles evolve. And job descriptions don't always evolve with the role.
Drives me crazy.
So
Yeah. But they
We-
still have people sign them.
And
we're
don't get
yeah.
mad when you're not attracting the right talent because your job description doesn't tell you what you're supposed to be doing. There's a soapbox moment.
Before Molly burst into flames, I'm going to ask Jim to close that file. Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information is listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.